I want to share a story that happened to me 2 years ago. I still can't believe it was real. When my wife said those words, "I'm exhausted by this marriage," I thought it was just another argument that would blow over in a few days. But what happened next changed my entire life. My name is Andrew. I'm 42. I live in a typical American city, working as an engineer at a factory. I was married to Sarah for 20 years. We have 2 kids, our daughter Emily, who's 18, and our son Daniel, who's 15. On the surface, we seemed like an ordinary family. We worked, raised our kids, dealt with daily life. But in recent years, something shifted. Sarah and I started drifting apart. You know how it happens first. We talked less, then each lived our own life, until finally we were like roommates, sharing an apartment. I thought it was normal. I told myself, well, life gets routine, the kids are growing up, the romance fades. Lots of my buddies complain about the same thing. Sarah worked at a bank as a loan department manager. She was always an active, energetic woman. In recent years, she became even busier, staying late at work, traveling for business, constantly organizing things. I was happy for her, thinking it was great she had a career she loved, that she was growing professionally. Meanwhile, I buried myself in my work. Things were tough at the factory, constant layoffs, new demands, needing to learn new technologies. I'd come home exhausted, wanting only dinner and TV. Honestly, sometimes I'd fall asleep right in the armchair in front of the TV. The kids had their own lives too. Emily started university and was hardly ever home. Daniel was always on his computer or out with friends. We'd talk over dinner, but it was superficial what everyone did that day, plans for tomorrow. No deep conversations. I remember once, about 3 months before that fateful day, Sarah tried to talk to me about our relationship. She said, "Andrew, I feel like we've become strangers. When was the last time you asked how I was really doing? When did we last talk about something other than work or the kids?" I brushed her off, said something like, "Sarah, it's just a tough phase for everyone. The kids are older, work is busy, it's normal. The important thing is we're together, the family is solid." She gave me this strange look and didn't bring it up again. I thought, good, no need to overthink it or invent problems. How wrong I was. Now I understand it was a cry for help. She was trying to reach me, and I didn't even hear her. I was wrapped up in my own stuff, my own problems. I thought that as long as the house was in order, the kids were healthy, and the bills were paid, everything was fine. That ill-fated evening, I got home around 7 as usual. Sarah was in the kitchen making dinner. She looked tired, tense. I said hello, asked how her day was. She answered curtly. The kids were home, Daniel doing homework, Emily studying for exams. Dinner was ordinary. We talked about weekend plans, groceries we needed, Daniel's upcoming parent-teacher conference, just mundane stuff. The kids went to their rooms, and we stayed to clean up. Suddenly Sarah stopped, leaned against the sink and said, "Andrew, I need to tell you something." Something in her voice put me on alert. I put down the towel and looked at her. "I'm exhausted by this marriage," she said quietly, but very clearly. The words hit me like a sentence. I felt everything inside me clench. "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I knew it couldn't be good. Sarah turned to me. Tears glistened in her eyes, but she held herself together. "I mean exactly what I said. I'm tired of pretending everything's okay. I'm tired of living like roommates. I'm tired of you not seeing me, not hearing me. For 20 years I waited for something to change, but nothing ever did. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. My mind raced. Where is this coming from? Everything seemed fine. I tried to calm things down. "Sarah, come on. What are you saying? We have a good family, great kids, a nice home. Yeah, the romance has faded, but that's normal after 20 years. All couples go through this." But she shook her head. "No, Andrew, it's not normal. Normal is when people stay close, when they're interested in each other, when they grow together. We just exist side by side. You don't even remember my birthday." Honestly, I was flustered. Of course I remembered March 15th. But somehow, at that moment, the date flew out of my head. That only proved her point. I felt like the biggest jerk. "What do you want to do?" I asked. My heart was pounding like crazy. Sarah wiped her tears and said, "I want a divorce, amicably, civilly, for the kids' sake. They're old enough to understand. I can't live like this anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there replaying our life over the past years." And I realized my wife was right. We had become strangers. I'd gotten so buried in work and routine that I stopped seeing the person beside me. When she talked about her day, I nodded but didn't listen. When she suggested going out together, I'd refuse, blaming exhaustion. Sarah got up early the next morning as usual, getting ready for work. I approached her and said, "Sarah, let's talk again. Maybe we can fix this." She looked at me sadly. "Andrew, I thought about it all night. No, it's too late. I've made my decision. I'm filing the papers today." She left for work. I got the kids off to school and university as if nothing was wrong. But inside, my world was crumbling. 20 years of shared life were collapsing before my eyes, and I didn't even know what to do. At work, I was in a daze all day. Colleagues asked if I was okay. I said I just hadn't slept well. How do you tell people your wife wants a divorce? I could barely believe it myself. I came home that evening hoping Sarah had changed her mind, but she wasn't there. The kids said Mom called and asked them to tell me she was staying overnight with her sister Olivia, and that she had important things to do tomorrow. The next day I woke up early waiting for Sarah to come back. Around 10 in the morning she did. She looked determined but sad. She had a folder of documents in her hand. "I filed the papers at the courthouse," she said without preamble. "Our marriage will be officially dissolved in a month." Those words hit me like lightning. I understood she wasn't joking or trying to scare me. She genuinely wanted a divorce. But what she said next left me truly stunned. "Andrew, I bought an apartment," Sarah said, looking me straight in the eye. "A one-bedroom, not far from here. I'm moving there next week." I sank onto a chair. My mind couldn't process it. Bought it? With what money? When did she have time? It turned out that for the last 6 months my wife had been saving money from her salary, took out a loan from her bank, and simultaneously looked for a suitable place. "You were planning to leave all this time?" I asked, despair probably in my voice. Sarah nodded. "Yes, Andrew. I realized something fundamental had to change in my life. I thought long and hard, tried to find other ways, but realized this was the only way out. I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. So while I was living my ordinary life, thinking everything was fine, my wife had long been planning to leave me, and I hadn't noticed a thing. How blind I'd been. The kids? What about the kids? That was the only question I could muster. Sarah sat down opposite me. "Emily's an adult now. She has her own life. She'll live here with you or with me, whatever she decides. Daniel is trickier. He stays here in his familiar environment to finish school. He'll come stay with me on weekends." Everything was thought out down to the smallest detail. I realized my wife hadn't made this decision impulsively. She'd weighed everything for a long time, planned it, prepared for it. And I hadn't had a clue. "Sarah, is there really no chance to fix this?" I asked. I desperately wanted to do something, fix the situation. She shook her head. "Andrew, if you'd asked that a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe we could have done something. But now it's too late. I've waited too long for change. We talked for a long time that day. Sarah told me things that shocked me. It turned out she'd tried many times to draw my attention to the problems in our relationship. She'd suggested seeing a marriage counselor, taking a vacation together, just spending more time alone. But I always had an excuse. "Remember when I suggested going to the city for my birthday?" she asked. I did remember. I'd said work was crazy. I couldn't take time off. "And when I suggested taking dance lessons?" "You said it was silly, that we were too old for that kind of thing." With every word, I felt more ashamed. I really had rejected all her attempts to enrich our life, to make it more interesting. I thought it was a waste of time and money. Work, home, kids, that's what should be the main thing for a grown man. "And remember my birthday last year?" Sarah continued. "And then I realized the mistake I'd made. That day, I came home late, bought a cake from the grocery store on the way, and gave her some cheap face cream. I didn't even apologize for not helping organize the party. Meanwhile, Sarah had spent the whole day cooking dinner for guests, cleaning the apartment, setting the table. "You didn't care," she said quietly. "You didn't even notice I bought a new dress specially for that day. Didn't notice I got my hair cut, had a manicure. I became invisible to you." Those words cut deep, because they were true. I'd stopped seeing my wife as a woman. To me, she was just part of the household, cooking, cleaning, keeping the house running. That she had her own desires, dreams, needs, I somehow overlooked that. The week passed like a nightmare. Sarah packed her things, arranged the move. I tried to talk her out of it, promised to change, but she was unwavering. "Too late, Andrew," she kept repeating. The kids took the news differently. Emily said she'd felt the tension between us for a long time and was surprised we'd lasted as long as we had. Daniel took it harder. He was younger. He wanted the family to stay together, but he also understood his parents were unhappy, and that wasn't good either. On moving day, I helped Sarah move her things. It was a strange feeling, 20 years building this home, buying furniture, appliances, dishes. Now we were dividing it all up. Sarah took only the essentials, clothes, books, a few things precious to her. When we closed the door to her new apartment, I knew it was the end. 20 years of shared life were officially over. My wife no longer lived under the same roof. The first weeks after the divorce were the hardest of my life. The house felt empty and cold. I couldn't cook proper meals, forgot to do laundry, didn't know where anything was. Turned out Sarah did much more around the house than I'd realized. But worst of all was the emotional toll. I felt like a complete failure. I couldn't keep my family together, couldn't make my wife happy. Friends and colleagues learning about the divorce reacted differently. Some sympathized, some said, "Well, good for you, you're free now." But I didn't want to be free. I wanted my wife back. A month after the divorce, I decided to go see Sarah and try to talk again. I came to her new apartment with a bouquet of flowers. She greeted me politely but coldly, invited me in, offered tea. The apartment was small but cozy. Sarah had furnished it tastefully, creating a warm atmosphere. Sitting on her couch, I realized she was happy. For the first time in many years, I saw her truly calm and content with her life. "How are things?" I asked. "Good," she replied. "And you?" "Not good," I admitted. "Sarah, maybe we could try starting over. I understand my mistakes. I'm ready to change." She looked at me intently. "Andrew, I believe you sincerely want to change right now. But you see, I don't want to go back. I finally feel what it's like to live for myself. I have time for hobbies, meeting friends, personal growth. I've signed up for Italian lessons. I go to the theater. I read books. I'm living a full life." Her words felt like a slap. So with me, she couldn't live a full life? I was holding her back. "But you could have done all that before," I said. "No one stopped you." "No one stopped me, but no one supported me either," Sarah replied. "When I said I wanted to learn Italian, you laughed. Why do you need Italian at 40? When I wanted to take dance lessons, you said it was a waste of money. When I suggested going on vacation somewhere interesting instead of just the cabin, you found 1,000 reasons why we shouldn't. Once again, I realized she was right. I really hadn't supported her initiatives. I thought that at our age we needed to focus on serious things, work, kids, the house, entertainment and hobbies were for young people. "You know," my wife continued, "now I'm studying Italian. I dream of going to Italy. And you know what? I am going. I'll save up and go, because now no one will tell me it's a stupid waste of money or that I have no business there." There was a sparkle in her eyes I hadn't seen in years, and I understood she'd blossomed without me, become the person she wanted to be but couldn't be next to me. We talked a little more, mostly about the kids. Then I left. On the way home, I thought about how selfish I'd been. For 20 years, a woman with her own dreams and desires lived beside me, and I only saw her as a housewife and the mother of my children. Home greeted me with emptiness. Daniel was at a friend's, Emily at university. I sat in my armchair and for the first time in years tried to honestly assess myself as a husband. The picture wasn't pretty. When we first got married, I was attentive and caring. I brought flowers, arranged surprises. We talked a lot, made plans. But gradually, year by year, I got complacent. I figured since we had the marriage certificate, I didn't need to try so hard. My wife wasn't going anywhere. The kids tied us together. Daily life held us. How wrong I was. Love needs to be nurtured every day. Relationships require constant work, attention, growth. And I thought the main thing was providing financially. The rest would sort itself out. 6 months passed after the divorce. I started gradually adapting to my new life. Learned to cook. Keep the house in order. Daniel helped, but he had his own life school, friends, activities. Emily came by sometimes, but was busy with her studies. Then something happened that made me think even more deeply about my mistakes. My friend Victor, who I'd known since high school, got divorced. He came over to my place, completely distraught, telling his story. "Andrew, you understand," he said. "Natalie left me for someone else, said I'd become boring to her, that we turned into roommates. I thought everything was fine. House, good income, healthy kids, no big fights." Listening to him, it was like hearing myself 6 months earlier. The same words, the same thoughts, the same incomprehension. And I realized the problem wasn't just in my marriage. Many men of my generation make the same mistakes. "Vic," I said to him, "do you remember the last time you asked what your wife dreamed about? When you asked what was on her mind, what she wanted out of life?" He thought, "Well, we always talked about everything." No, not about the kids or household problems. About her, personally. Victor was silent for a long time, then admitted, "You know, I don't remember. Probably been a long time since we had that kind of talk." And then I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd asked Sarah about herself, not about family matters. We sat up late into the night, discussing our marriages. We concluded that somewhere in the middle of married life, we'd stopped seeing our wives as individuals. They became functions to us, mother of the kids, keeper of the home, colleague in solving family problems. That they were living people with their own interests and needs, we'd somehow lost sight of that. After this talk, I decided to try to build a better relationship with Sarah. Not to get her back, I understood that was impossible. But at least to become normal friends, for the kids' sake, and for my own peace of mind. I started calling her once a week, just to see how she was doing. Didn't offer unsolicited advice, didn't try to bring back the past, just showed human concern. Gradually our talks became warmer and friendlier. I learned she really had signed up for Italian lessons. More than that, she'd made new friends there, and was planning a trip to Rome with them. She'd also started yoga, and was even thinking about changing careers. She wanted to start her own business. "You know, Andrew," she told me once on the phone, "I feel like I've been reborn. Like I lived 20 years, not my own life. And now I've finally become myself." Those words made me happy and sad at the same time. Happy because my ex-wife was happy. Sad because I realized she couldn't be that person with me. Meanwhile, my life started changing too. At first it was forced. I had to learn to live alone. But gradually, I realized it could be interesting. I joined a gym for the first time in years. Turned out physical activity not only improved my health, but my mood too. I started reading books I used to think it was a waste of time. Turned out reading develops you, gives you food for thought. Even at work, colleagues noticed changes. "Andrew, you seem fresher somehow," they'd say. And I really did feel more energetic, more alive. But the most important change was in my attitude towards people. I started paying more attention to others, what worried them, what they thought, what they felt. Before, I was only interested in practical matters, who was doing what, work results. Now I noticed that people weren't functions, but individuals with their own inner worlds. A year after the divorce, something happened that finally changed my understanding of relationships. A new employee, Irene, started at work, a design engineer, a woman my age, also divorced, with a grown son. At first we just worked in the same department, occasionally talking about work, but gradually we started talking about personal things too. Irene turned out to be a fascinating conversationalist, well-read, with a great sense of humor, an active approach to life. Once, we stayed late at work finishing a project. We ordered pizza to the office and started talking. Irene told the story of her divorce very similar to mine. Her husband had also stopped noticing her as a woman, seeing only a housewife and mother. "You know, Andrew," she said, "the most hurtful thing wasn't that he fell out of love with me. It was that he stopped being interested in me. I could dye my hair, buy a new dress, read an interesting book, he wouldn't care. To him, I was part of the furniture." Her words sounded like quotes from my talks with Sarah. I understood this problem affected so many families. Men get used to their wives and stop valuing them. We started seeing each other more often, first at work, then outside of it. Irene was into photography, went to exhibitions, read a lot of books. It was interesting talking to her about all sorts of topics. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, interest in a woman as a person. But most importantly, I understood how relationships should be built. With Irene, I was attentive from the start, interested in her opinions, asked about her plans and dreams, noticed changes in her appearance, and I saw her open up, become more trusting and open. We started dating. We didn't hide it from the kids. Both my Daniel and her son Dennis took it well. Sarah was calm about it too, even said she was happy for me. With Irene, I tried not to repeat past mistakes. We went to theaters, cafes, traveled. I supported her hobbies, and she supported mine. We talked a lot, not just about household things, but about life in general, books, plans for the future. And you know what? It turned out that being attentive to your partner isn't hard at all. You just need to remember that the person beside you is a living being with their own interests and needs, not an appliance for daily life. It's been 2 years since the divorce. Now I can say I'm grateful to Sarah for having the strength to end a relationship that wasn't bringing happiness to either of us. Without that shock, I would have kept living under the illusion that everything was fine. Sarah did go to Italy more than once, learned the language, met interesting people. She even met an Italian man, Marco, who often comes to the US for work. They're happy, and I'm genuinely glad for her. My relationship with my ex-wife became much better than it was in the last years of our marriage. We communicate friendly, discuss the kids' lives, sometimes get together as a family for holidays. Sarah says I've become a completely different person, more attentive, understanding, interesting. The kids notice the changes too. Daniel once told me, "Dad, you know you've gotten way better at talking. Before you were always caught up in your own thoughts, but now you actually listen to what I'm saying." That was the best compliment of my life. Emily also became more open with me. She tells me about university, her plans for the future, even her personal life. Before, she only discussed those things with her mom. Irene and I have been living together for 1.5 years now. We're not rushing into an official marriage. We're good as we are. But I know I won't repeat past mistakes. Every day I try to show her she's important to me, not just as a companion or homemaker, but as an interesting, unique person. We're learning photography together, going out into nature to take pictures. We go to exhibitions, theaters. We're planning a trip to Europe. I want to travel now, discover new places. Before I thought it was a waste of money. Now I understand it's an investment in the relationship, in shared memories. Recently I met an old acquaintance who asked, "How are things after the divorce? Bet you regret it." And you know, I answered honestly, "No, I don't regret it. I only regret not understanding sooner how to treat the people close to me. Now I often think about how many marriages fall apart due to neglect and indifference. Men think the main thing is to provide financially, and they forget the emotional side. Women endure for years, hoping something will change, and then one day realize they have no strength left. If I could go back, I'd change a lot in my marriage to Sarah. I'd be more interested in her life, support her hobbies, give more compliments, arrange surprises. Maybe then she wouldn't have felt invisible. But life doesn't give you a chance to rewrite the past. It does, however, give you the opportunity not to repeat mistakes in the future. And I'm using that opportunity. Now, when I see young couples, I want to tell them, don't take each other for granted. Every day, show your partner they matter to you. Be interested not just in shared responsibilities, but in the inner world of the person close to you. Grow together, support each other's dreams. It sounds simple, but in practice, it requires constant attention and effort. But the result is worth it: strong, happy relationships where both partners feel needed and important. My story ended in divorce, but a new life began. More conscious, more fulfilling, more humane. And for that I'm grateful to fate, despite all the pain I had to endure.